Let's start with the first one, MyISAM. Okay, I'm gonna sometimes I'm gonna butcher the name, so I'm gonna say MyISAM, right? But you know what I'm talking about. So it stands for Indexed Sequential Access Method, and yes, it says indexed because everything is indexed, right? And that means, right, every index you create points directly to the row, right? And that could be advantageous and sometimes bad. So we're going to talk through that, right? So it's a B tree, and I'm going to make a specific video about B trees and LSM trees, right? Let's not focus more about that. Well, B3 is a computer science architecture, computer sciencey stuff, right? That allows you to store data on disk, right? So you can search through them very fast, right? A lot of people don't know what B stands for. That's what the big Wikipedia article says, at least. I call BS on that. I think it's just balanced tree. Why do we keep complicating things? Just it's obviously it's not binary tree, right? Because B3 is not really just two nodes. You can have multiple nodes. You can specify many nodes, right? But yeah, I would just say stands for balanced tree. Okay, you can call me out on that one. So yeah, the indexes point directly to the rows, right? So if you think about it, it's like there will be an index, and there's like there will be the data itself, the rows, right? And then the index will point directly to this place on disk offset where the row exists, right? So it's a very fast access to the location where stuff inserts are also fast, right? But it doesn't have really transactional support, right? So you cannot do ACID stuff on it, and we're gonna show that in the practical part of this video. So you cannot do transactions, guys. You're stuck. You cannot do like a banking stuff where we can debit one account and credit one account in one transaction. That's impossible. So that might be very dangerous to use this at MyISAM too. Maybe you can build it, the atomicity and in the database layer. That's possible, right? It's not hard, but it could be done. But MyISAM on itself does not support transactions, right? So if you're planning to use transactions, you cannot use MyISAM. It has been open source and owned by Oracle. So this thing had been flanking from different people, right? So I don't remember the first company that created it. It's a Swedish company, right? I think Sleepy Cat. I might be wrong there. And then Sun bought that thing, right? And then Oracle bought Sun and MySQL. And then Oracle owns all that stuff, MyISAM and MySQL database. It owns pretty much AnoDB, all that stuff, right? And we're going to talk about why people really hate that part and why people start forking. Once Oracle start owning this stuff, people start forking this thing and creating their own databases. So inserts are fast. Updates or deletes are problematic and because they create fragments. So let's talk a little bit about that. So when you insert, you always insert to the end of the disk and you know where the end of the file is. So that's fast, right? Because you always know where the end of the file is, and that's a very quick access to the end of the file. You know where it is, so you know you can throw stuff at the end. The problem is when you go back and you start updating existing rows, right? Or maybe deleting existing rows in the middle, right? So that's a problem because the moment you start deleting and updating, you change the row size. And if you change the row size, the offsets change. And all these, the indexes that point to that row, now the offsets change. You have to go and update all your indexes. And that's slow, man. So that's why updates and deletes, right, are very slow in MyISAM because you're updating that thing and you're changing the structure of your file, and guess what? Those poor indexes that point to this row index offset 700 is no longer 700, it's 705. So you have to go and change all that stuff, and that's expensive, right? So database crashes, corrupts table. I read this place, and a lot of people complain. Well, I faced this personally back when I owned my own MySQL. What is it called? The LAMP stack. I didn't own a LAMP stack. I owned a WAMP stack because of Windows. But it's the same thing, right? If the database, like in the middle of an inserts, the long inserts or updates, if it crashes, you have a corrupt table. You cannot access it unless you repair it. And that, right? And that is very problematic, right? If you corrupt your indexes. And you can see why MyISAM tables can get corrupted, guys, like, because we just explained it. We have a lot of indexes that point directly to the location of the row on disk. That's bad, right? Because now you have to make sure the database have to update all these indexes, and that's bad. Because anything that gets out of sequence, well, you have to go and update that. There's a repair utility that repairs tables for you. And it supports table level locking. There is no row level locking. So if you want to prevent people from editing, you lock the whole table versus so that poor people, if they want to insert an irrelevant row, they cannot, right? Versus if you want to just really, you want to stop people from editing that particular row, right? You can't, right? That's the problem. AnnoDB supports row level locking. MyISAM doesn't. So that kind of slows writing down if you have concurrent users. MySQL, MariaDB, PersonaDB, all of these guys are MySQL forks. Well, MySQL is not a MySQL fork. They all support MyISAM, okay? Persona, MariaDB, right? Used to be the default engine for MySQL until I believe version 5.5, where those guys says, you know what, this is a mess, right? Let's support transactions, let's support row level locking, let's support all that foreign keys, all that beautiful stuff, right? We cannot just start building all these functionality on the database itself. Let's push it down to the storage database, right, as a database engine, so people can use this database engine to build their own databases, right?